All right, and welcome back to another great episode of Screw the W2 show here on my YouTube channel. This is John Rickgarn, creator of the Wealth and Freedom Nexus website, podcast, reading material, as well as the YouTube channel. And today I got a great guest, actually another Jonathan Mednick of REI Trader LLC. Jonathan and I have actually known each other for about 4-ish years, somewhere in there. Actually met with him and his business partner, invested alongside them on a fix and flip down in Birmingham, Alabama. And still myself invest in Birmingham, and Jonathan invest, I think, pretty much solely in Birmingham, but maybe he'll correct me a little bit as we get on to this interview. So with that, this will take a little bit of a different spin from other previous podcasts. If you've been following from the beginning, where I introduced, Anna and Rachel and even myself of, yep, here's the day that we decided to leave our W-2 job. In Jonathan's case, his employer made that decision for him. So this will be a little bit of a different interview. So with that, Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So now maybe we can just take a step back, and I know this will be going out back a couple of years, but prior to you becoming a real estate investor, flipper, entrepreneur, what was your previous W-2 job, and what was like a normal day, so to speak, with it?
Oh boy. Okay.
Or was there a
I
normal day?
Originally I went to college for music. I was a
Okay.
professional musician. And after I graduated, I went to work on cruise ships for 5 years, got to travel around the world for 5 years, and that was a lot of fun.
Okay.
After that, I moved back to my native city of New York. And from there, I got into working in technology.
Okay.
So I was a poster child for the dot-com boom back in the mid to late 90s.
Okay.
And then at that time in 97, I moved down to Fort Lauderdale, where I resided for about 15 years. And then in 2001, when the dot-com bust happened, I was working for Arthur Andersen and other IBM and other tech savvy companies. And I had done that for maybe 6 years
Okay.
before the explosion happened in 2001. And by the spring of 2002, I was out of my job.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
So how did they break that to you kinder than the Lehman Brothers layoffs in
Yeah.
2008? Or
Well, I think I knew it was coming, and
okay.
I had just started with this system integrator out of Portland, Oregon, and I was working in the Southeast, specifically in the Miami, Fort Lauderdale market, traveling quite a bit. But when everything started to go south in the financial market with the dot-com companies like Pets.com, I mean, no one remembers that.
Yep.
I knew around February, March that the writing was on the wall. And I think it was sometime in March or April of 2002 is when I got the call. And
Okay.
they said they gave me 2 week notice and thanked me for my service, which I had worked for that company maybe 6 months.
Wow.
And it was a six-figure job. It was great. I was a senior manager in business technology. And by April, yeah, I was gone.
Jeez. So, all right. Well, obviously, even today here in 2022, obviously a six-figure job is, pretty good money. And, 20 years ago, before we had 8.5% inflation, was even better money. At that time, when you got the news, and I mean, obviously you shared that you kind of knew the writing was on the wall, but once you officially had that news, you officially had your last day. What were kind of your next steps, and what were your thoughts and feelings going through your head at that time?
Yeah, it was really difficult because I had some savings I put away, and I'd say from April through the end of May, I had sent out, oh my God, 200 resumes
Wow.
to all of these tech companies, and very few were hiring. And the ones that were offering me jobs, it was insider call reps
Uh,
for 50, 55,000. which, is not a decent, it's a decent salary, but
Hmm.
I was making well over 100 grand. So I literally had to I was basically getting a third of my previous paycheck.
Right.
I just couldn't see myself. Maybe it was hubris, maybe it was arrogance, maybe I was like, I just couldn't do it.
Hmm.
And so I just decided, I think it was end of May, that I think I'm done. I think I'm done with technology. I
Okay.
decided to try something else.
Okay. Sounds good. And then was that where you jumped right into real estate and then moved to Birmingham, or what was the timeline after that?
Right. At that time, I was still in Fort Lauderdale. This
Okay.
was 2002. And I had remembered that I was thinking of trying to reinvent myself. So, after college, I was a professional musician. Then I worked on cruise ships. I was assistant cruise director for 5 years.
Wow.
Then I came off ships. And then, I had a few other businesses and got into technology. So, for the fourth time, I need to reinvent myself and do something different.
Okay.
And I've always been like that my whole life. I'm not the type that will sit back and exhaust all of my savings and be unemployed for a couple of years to wait for that next 9 to 5 job to come along. If the opportunity doesn't present itself, then I'm going to go out and make my own opportunity, and that's
Hmm.
exactly what I did. And so I remembered, at the time, I had purchased a real estate course from one of those late night television
Sure.
shows. It was called Carlton Sheets. You might remember it.
Okay. I
Remember
heard the
him.
name.
And
Yeah.
he had, right. So one night in 1996, I was up late. I was living on Upper East Side of Manhattan. He came on. I bought the course for $185. And it came, but I never opened it. And
Okay.
it just sat in my closet in a box for years. And so in 2002, end of May, I'm thinking, well, I remember I had this real estate course that I bought a few years ago, and let me go find it. Let me dig it out. And maybe this is something I might want to do. And so I found the course, I went through it, and I decided that perhaps this was an opportunity for me to shift into a new career.
Okay.
And so I started um, um, educating myself on the initial program. And I found my first deal a few weeks after I saw the course,
Okay.
and I flipped it. I made $18,000,
Nice.
which one paycheck, at the time, even though my W-2 jobs,
Hmm.
I, was getting a nice income, nice paycheck, but I never had that kind of a payday all
Yep.
at once. So I show up at closing, and I'm what's called wholesaling. I'm flipping this house.
Hmm.
Anyway, I walked out of the closing, and I wasn't overly excited because I thought, well, what if I can't repeat the success? What if this is a one-time affair?
Hmm.
Um, and it wasn't until about 3 weeks later, when I flipped my next house, I made 10 grand. So in the span of a month, I made $28,000. And then
Wow.
20 years later, and more than 2,000 properties, I could happily say that I am done with the W-2 jobs forever. And so a
Okay.
lot of times when people ask me, what do you do for a living? I say, well, for the last 20 years, I've been happily unemployed because this is not a job for me. It's a
Right.
lifestyle, and I enjoy what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I've talked to several people, and I don't know how they've introduced themselves as unemployable, where, the only thing for them is entrepreneurship or working for themselves, not, taking orders from a boss, so to speak. Just a quick shameless plug too. If you're listening to this or watching this and you just heard Jonathan and I discuss wholesaling, and you're thinking, what in the world is wholesaling? Feel free to check out my podcast, the Wealth and Freedom Nexus podcast, episode 34. My guest and I do a deep dive into that, and what wholesaling is and how that could be an option for anyone wanting to get started in real estate investing with relatively little money versus some other avenues. So then, Jonathan, as we're kind of going forward, you've obviously mentioned the wholesaling, had a nice, 5-figure payday, one after the other. Realized, okay, I think this will work. I think I'm never going to work for a W-2 employer again. Did you continue that, or did you get into more fix and flips or syndications, or how did this kind of go from 2002 to where you were at in 2022?
Right. When the crash happened in 2007, 2008, I lost everything. I
Okay.
was $1.5 million in debt.
Wow.
So let that sink in. And
Ouch.
lost properties. It was pretty devastating. Just got divorced at the same time. And
Jeez.
I would say it was a low point, but I will say this. I never filed bankruptcy, and there was never a moment, never any doubt in my mind that I would crawl my way back and turn it around. And so I struggled for a few years, and in 2011, had an opportunity to work with a fund out of LA who was looking to buy properties in the Birmingham market, and I figured they'd reach out to me, even though I was in Fort Lauderdale, and we got to talking, and before you know it, in September of 2011, I moved to Birmingham after flipping them several houses.
Okay.
Um, since that time, I was, just basically doing only that, just wholesaling houses to this group out of LA. Didn't really know anyone in Birmingham when I first got here.
Okay.
Actually, I didn't know anyone. And since that time frame, got my real estate license. I have my own real estate brokerage. I have a few agents, more investors, and I hold their license, let them do their thing.
Sure.
So Real Equity Realty is my brokerage here in Birmingham. I work with a lot of investors to help them flip their properties when they're ready to put them on the MLS.
Okay.
REI Trader is a parent company, so we fix and flip. We wholesale through that company. We also have more than 100 rentals, single family doors that we own, and that's in our long-term portfolio.
Okay.
And we've just started getting into the short-term rental market. So we have Airbnbs. We have getting ready to launch today our fourth, and I hope by the end of the year we'll convert another 6. So we'll have a total of 10 Airbnb properties.
Wow.
They're doing pretty well.
Okay.
We also we're also money brokers, so we're hard money brokers and hard money lenders, both locally for local investors who are looking for fix and flip loans, and
Okay.
we're money brokers for commercial lenders or for those investors who are out of state of Alabama or looking to refi or do fix and flip loan in their respective market. So I've literally have grown the business exponentially over the last 10 years. Other than we have REI Trader, Real Equity, we have a couple of holding companies. So I own about 5 companies right now.
Wow.
And they're all doing well. Just hire an administrative assistant to kind of help handle the day-to-day paperwork, because sometimes it gets to be a little bit overwhelming. I also do have a business partner. He handles the finance and construction side of our operations, and we've been business partners now for about, I think about 8 years.
Okay. Well, yeah. Wow. 5 companies. I can definitely understand why you hired an administrative assistant at that point. So
yeah, I need it.
yeah,
It gets to
exactly.
that point where you have to feel, one of, I think the biggest challenges for an entrepreneur is being able to give up control.
Yep.
And so I'm sure you can
I'm there.
Yeah, we're a little OCD, and I guess that's why I think, for people who want to get away from a W-2 job, the most important question you need to ask yourself is do you have the personality? Do you have the ability to not have a floor in income, but also not have a ceiling?
Right.
And for me, when I decided to get into this, that was the biggest challenge. A lot of people, and I give them credit, they love the conformity of a 9-to-5 job where they have a floor and a ceiling on their pay. They like the benefits. They like going to the office every day. For most entrepreneurs, that's just not the case. My days are crazy. I start at 6 a.m. and some days I'll work until 8 or 10 p.m. Other days I'm working 3 or 4 hours, and sometimes I work on the weekends. It just depends. It drives my girlfriend a little crazy sometimes because she has a 9-to-5 job. So for her to understand that sometimes I have to work in the evenings or the weekends, it's been an adjustment for her, but she's been my biggest supporter, and I thank every day that she's with me. She's really been a tremendous help.
That's good. And kind of likewise, the pros of being self-employed then obviously kind of gives you the freedom and uh you know time flexibility to go on vacations. I know you've been I think it was New Zealand and Australia,
Yes.
and then I think you went on a motorcycle trip for 2 or 3 weeks. I can't remember. So,
Yeah, so one of the great things about having your own business is you a lot of investors or people come to me and they forget to go out and have fun
mhm.
and to enjoy life. And part of doing this is that you want the lifestyle. When you hear all of these programs on TV or these YouTube channels, and they talk about all these great things you could do in your life, you have to make those things happen. So
Mhm.
prior at the time when I was still single, I went to New Zealand for December of 2018. Was there for the entire month. Had an amazing time. Um, Rented a camper van and drove 2,200 miles between the North and South Islands of the country.
Wow.
And in December 2019, I went to Australia for a
Okay.
month. Did the same thing and had an amazing time. Did everything you can possibly do. And it's always been on my bucket list, but you can't really do that when you have a 9 to 5 job. Now, there are times when I take my trips, and I certainly invite, one or two close friends or family members, and no one can take that kind of time off. And so when I met my girlfriend, Gina, who's never really traveled much, we finally last summer, actually a year ago at this time, we went to Iceland
Oh,
for
okay.
a little over a week. So we're there and we had a great time. And so recent trips have been to Vermont. We were in Utah back in April, and we're heading up to New York City to see family for 10 days later this month. So I would say, yeah, that, I still love to travel, and
Mhm.
I need to travel, planning a trip to Portugal for a couple of weeks in December.
Oh,
And
well,
it's
cool.
important to be able to get out there and enjoy life. And that's part of, in doing what we do. But with a 9 to 5 job and being limited 2 weeks out of the year,
Mhm.
it's very challenging to be able to, create that lifestyle.
Exactly. So, yeah, and I think I don't know, it's for me, it's always kind of sunk into that life is too short. And I always kind of, my tagline is don't defer your life, because I think so many people get stuck where, excuse me, I'm going to work, 9 to 5. I'm going to work 40, 50, 60 hours a week for employer XYZ. I'm going to shove all this money into the 401k or SEP IRA or whatever plan. And when age 62, 65, 67 comes around, I'll retire, and then I'll go to New Zealand. Then I'll go to Iceland. Then I'll go to Utah and whatnot. And at the end of the day, none of us are guaranteed tomorrow.
Mhm.
Just about a month and a half ago, my neighbor down the hall, knew him for about 3 years, was financial advisor. He passed away suddenly of a stroke at age 59, and it's still kind of, I don't know if you want to say haunting, because I literally talked to him that day before he had a stroke. It was probably just a couple of hours. And then
Mhm.
24 hours later, saw that he had passed away on Facebook. So I think probably for me with entrepreneurship is then it gives you, yeah, there are some more stresses, uh, the good news is you are your own boss. The bad news is you are your own boss. So depending on what kind of person you are, if you can hold yourself accountable to that, it can give you the flexibility to really, take time off and, not defer everything to a later date. You kind of alluded to this a little bit, Jonathan, and maybe have a different answer to this, but your journey of 20 years, obviously starting for that first wholesale deal to where you are now, what's been the best part of your journey being in entrepreneurship and being, unemployable for the last 2 decades?
Yeah, I remember, I think it was a rock band back in the 90s when they were being interviewed. The interviewer asked them, "What do you attribute your overnight success to be?" And the band member, the lead singer, had responded, "Our overnight success took us 20 years."
Okay.
And so I would say that there are definitely ups and downs to
Hmm.
doing what we do. But I think the greatest, for me, the biggest value is to being able to have the lifestyle, be able to travel, and being able to have the days where I want to take some time off and I want to do these things, and I'm not held to, I'm not accountable to anyone except myself. And I think having that freedom is very important. Now, I will also say that this is a business. I have
Yeah.
businesses to run, and every day, I have, my schedule is full. I have a structure in place. I set goals every day. Here are the things I need to knock out, make sure, need to make sure I have my calls, need to make sure I accomplish a certain number of tasks each day, whether it's at my home office where I am now, or whether it's at my corporate office downtown. So
Okay.
it's important, even as an entrepreneur, to be able to have a structure in place. But the greatest, for me, the greatest advantage has been, I don't have anyone controlling my future who can determine my wages, who can set my own schedule, who I have to report to. And for me to be in, lack of a better phrase, constant fear of losing my W-2 job. That went away years ago. And of so many people I know, as the economy rises and falls, often they are constantly stressed with, if I lose my job, what am I going to do? And I've seen, and which is something, as I guess an entrepreneur, I don't understand, because I've seen, I've had friends who lost their jobs and they literally were drawing unemployment. They exhausted all their savings. They were unemployed for 2, 3, 4 years before they found another job. But they didn't have the ability to reinvent themselves and go out and create an opportunity. They were so, they were so conditioned for that 9 to 5, structure, that they couldn't see outside the box and realize this is a gift. This is an amazing opportunity for you to go out and completely reorient and change your life and do something different. And doesn't mean you don't continue to look for that 9 to 5 job, but try to create an opportunity for you. So if it does go in a direction where you can do well at it and you can make money and have income, then that 9 to 5 job either goes away or is just another option. So I think the biggest benefit for me, as I'm 58, and in the next 3 to 4 years, I'm done, I will have a fairly significant passive income coming in every month where I don't literally have to work. So my plan is to, spend a couple of months here in Birmingham, and then spend probably 6 months up in Western Massachusetts, where I have a summer house. And then probably spend another 4 months possibly living in Portugal, go over there, look for property in December. So I can have that lifestyle and I'll have my passive income. And the whole goal as an entrepreneur is later on, when you get to retire, you have passive income coming in. It's not just your IRA or your 401k. You've got other sources of income you can draw on, that you're not relying on 401k or IRA, and you're held hostage to the highs and lows on the market on what you could draw. And it's not something that I subscribe to. I only know real estate. That's what I'm invested in. I don't have a 401k. I don't have IRA. So I know real estate, and I have a fairly significant passive income, and it's only going to grow from there. So the rules of the game have changed from when our parents were working and when we were younger, where we were expected to have a 9 to 5 job, work 40 years, work hard, retire, and then maybe you have the freedom to enjoy your travel and lifestyle and do the things that you want to do.
So yeah, very true. For anyone listening to this, and whether it's your story or my story or Anna's story or any of the other guests that I've had on this show, for anyone listening to this that maybe is in a position where they see the writing on the wall, like, oh, I'm gonna get let go, or gosh, what if I lose my job, or well, I would really like to do X or whatever the case is, but I'm got the golden handcuffs, so to speak, with my job. What would be, kind of like your one, piece of advice or words of wisdom that you could tell those people that are, maybe just right on the fence of taking that jump to entrepreneurship?
Well, there's two approaches. One, mine is where you're forced to because you lose your job and you
Hmm.
have to reinvent yourself. The other is I counsel a lot of real estate investors who are working full-time jobs
Okay.
and they are considering the jump to being a real estate investor full-time. And so what they need to do is they really need to think through the pros and cons and weigh the risk of at one point they can transition. I always say, make sure you have at least 6 months of monthly income stashed away
Hmm.
while you make that transition, and make sure possibly that you're already generating money or passive income while you have your 9 to 5 job before you make that transition. It's not for everyone.
Hmm.
It can be very scary at times to be able to do it, and knowing every day you wake up that you are responsible for your own success, and that that W-2 paycheck goes away, you have to realize now it's all in your hands to make something happen.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And kind of like you said with the investors, and I was in the same boat about 3 years ago, where starting to buy and invest in properties. If you're trying to get financing, right, wrong, or indifferent, that W-2 and that pay stub is almost like a rubber stamp of approval. Like, yep, we'll give you that loan. When you're a business owner or self-employed, then a lot of banks tend to, back off. Like, well, now we got to see 2 years of tax returns. We got to see a profit and loss statement. We got to talk to your references. We need blood samples and DNA samples in order
And your
to give you
firstborn
that.
child.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I would tell you, John, that right, there's going to be, as a business owner, there are going to be a few more hurdles when you go for certain loans, whether
Hmm.
it's buying a house or a business line of credit. But once you get beyond that, it's just really no more than what you would do with your W-2 job. Maybe it's a few more, things that hurdles you have to jump through to make
Hmm.
it happen, but it shouldn't dissuade you from pursuing entrepreneurship if that's really something that your audience or individual wants to do.
Hmm. No, makes sense. So maybe in closing, Jonathan, maybe I'll let you just kind of toot your own horn and do some shameless plugs. What are you and your business partner all working on? Is there any new projects that are in the pipeline for rest of 2022 and into 2023 here?
Yeah, I appreciate that, John. Thanks for the opportunity to appear today. Yeah, I mean, one thing we're working on is REI Trader. We're setting up a fund
Okay.
to offer out-of-state investors like yourself the ability to invest in the fund and to fund local investors who want to fix and flip or buy properties and eventually refinance them. So these are going to be short-term loans of a year, maybe 2 years at the most, and you'll get a nice interest of between 7 and 10%
Okay.
over that period of time. So we have that program. The other is that we're money brokers. So if there are other investors who are interested in refinancing or doing fix and flip loans outside the state of Alabama, we can certainly assist you with a lot of the commercial lenders that we work with.
Okay.
Other than that, REI Trader, people are looking for buy turnkey properties in Birmingham, or are they looking at real estate investing in Birmingham? I'm always happy to have a conversation with them.
Sounds good. And if anyone was interested in reaching out, whether it's the maybe investing in your fund or buying a rental property or hard money brokering, what's the best way to reach out to you, Jonathan?
Probably email. That's Jonathan at reitrader.com. JONATHAN at reitrader.com.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks again, Jonathan. It's been great to reconnect with you, and hope everything's in well in Birmingham. And thanks for sharing your story as well as words of wisdom with all my listeners.
Yes, thank you, John. I appreciate the time today, and much success with everything that you're doing, especially with your YouTube channel.
Yeah. So yeah, we'll see if I can get this rocking and rolling, and maybe I won't be the next Joe Rogan, but maybe I'll get enough listeners out there. So
I'm sure it will be a great success.
yeah. So sounds good. Thanks again for coming on, Jonathan.
My pleasure.